guests on. This is a chap who does Sky Sports Racing presenting, he does commentary, and back in the day, he was an agent for the great Willie Carson. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Mike Catermore. Right, you're there, sir. You are now live on our show, sir. How are you keeping then, Mike?
Gary, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, it's good. It's lovely to be on your programme. I've heard so much about it. I'm honoured to be on it. So thank you.
No worries. Well, you go back a long way, Mike. How did you get into horse racing in the first place?
Well, you know what, Gary? My dad, Brian, who sadly passed away 5 years ago now, he was a massive racing fan. He was a civil servant by trade, but he always loved the sport of racing, and he got me watching the Grand National as a kid. And it was in the days of the early 70s when, I remember, Specify was the first national I watched. And then Red Rum came along, and, I was hooked from that moment. I remember the first time watching live sport, well, at least I can remember, probably was England getting beaten in the World Cup in 1970, but the one I really remember was Red Rum's third national. It was tears of joy as opposed to tears of sadness.
Wow. And you become agent of Willie Carson?
Yeah, isn't it strange how things work out? I mean, when I was working for the Sporting Life Weekender, the weekly newspaper, it was a 3-day working week, Gary, and it meant we had a bit of scope to do other stuff. And Willie asked me through my colleague Jim McGrath, because Jim couldn't do it. Jim was way too busy. He was busy with Channel 4 and Timeform, and he was TVAM's racing correspondent at the time. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Jim would go through in the mornings. So Jim passed Willie on to me, and being an ex-Timeform employee with Jim, and Willie and I set off together in '89, which turned out to be a great year for him with Nash One and other stars around Humber Wayne and all that sort of stuff. And we had 5 seasons together. We had 700 domestic winners.
Wow.
Yeah, we did quite well, but I never made him champion. Big regret of mine, Gary.
Well, he had a lot of top jockeys around him at the time, to be fair. It's a great generation of jockeys with the Greville Starkings and the Lester Pigotts and Pat Edwards, and it's just a pleasure to witness those jockeys at the time. So you went into presenting then, Mike, and commentating. Favourite race you've commentated on? Have you got one in mind?
Oh, that's a good one. Talking about, I love commentating any time, Gary, whether it's, listen, within limits, there's some days when you go through the coaching a wee bit because the competition is not the highest, but I love commentating at the Cheltenham Festival. I had a few good years there.
Wow.
And I also enjoyed commentating at York a lot, and I think I've done the Ledger for the last 5 or 6 years now as well. You still get the butterflies, Gary, even they're multiplied a bit, when you do a really big one.
Right, unbelievable. And I suppose you've interviewed a lot of people as well, Mike. And who's your favourite character that you've interviewed?
Do you know, I love chatting to Henry Cecil. When he was
wow.
Yeah, Henry, yeah. And, he was my idol when I was getting into racing in the 70s. He and Joe Mercer were a team in those days, and Joe was my favourite jockey as a young lad because I thought he was so stylish. I ended up helping Joe write his autobiography years later. When we lost Joe recently, I was saddened by that, but I was also pleased that Joe had a really full life and he was still sharp until the end.
Yeah.
Paul, he was ill the last 2 or 3 years, but he had Frank to support him.
Wow,
and when I spoke to Henry, I felt I was in the presence of greatness. And I never got over the fact that Henry would talk to me, and he even invited me to stay at Warren Place a couple of times. During the days when he wasn't going so well, Gary, in the mid-noughties, and I stayed at his house a couple of times when I was covering Newmarket for Channel 4, and I remember he made me breakfast and scallops, anyway, like scallops, right?
That's a good impression.
Yeah, well, you're around these people, you just tend to pick up these mannerisms. He was a legend, a lovely man.
Yeah, we did do a show a few weeks ago in memory of Henry Cecil, and we had his nephew Ben Cecil from LA on the show, and yeah, and Ben's doing well out there training and that, but no, it's fantastic. So we move on to a certain chap called Bob Champion. Then what a guy! He's been on my show tonight. He's been on every night for 6 months, and it looks like he's hit £100,000, Mike. And you're the chairman of the Bob Champion Cancer Trust.
Well, I know. It's only because nobody else wanted to do it. Let's not get carried away. I've been a trustee now for about 15 years. When Nick Embericos, old Anita's owner, when he retired, he wrote me a letter, beautiful handwritten ink letter, asking me to take over the chairmanship. And look, I think Nick sounded out one or two of the others who were on there who didn't fancy it. I was more than delighted and flattered to take it up. And Bob's such a legend of a man. You know, Gary, you know him well. He's so modest.
Yeah.
He's an extraordinary human being.
Yeah.
And as you just said, he's about 300 quid short of 100 grand right now.
Yeah.
And that 40 for 40 book he did, 191 miles. To celebrate the 40th anniversary of Albanese was extraordinary for a man of his age to do, given that he was diagnosed before the walk with a tumour on his kidneys, which he's getting sorted out very, very soon, I believe. So, you know, I can't say enough about Bob. He's an extraordinary human being.
No, I'm absolutely privileged to be having Bob as part of our team now, and he's hoped to go into hospital by the end of the month. He said to me yesterday. But he's so upbeat about it. He just takes it in his stride. He's such an inspiration to everybody, what he's been through and what he's going through. And, a tremendous guy. Right, Derby Day tomorrow, Mike. This weather has turned things upside down a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, the worst day we've had for about, 2 weeks. But, I mean, I'm looking out the window now. It's still a bit drizzly. But tomorrow's going to be nice. And you know how Epsom dries out so quickly, Gary?
Yeah.
The ground will be fine. Come Derby at 4:30, whatever, it'll be fine. But I mean, it's the one race that I love the Derby. I loved it even more when it was on a Wednesday because I felt as though it was a special day in the calendar, like the Melbourne Cup is in Australia. But they moved it, didn't they? And a long time ago now.
Sad that.
It's going for yet another win in the race with this brilliant Bolshoi Ballet, and the only one in the race that they're running.
Yeah, that's unusual. He normally has about half a dozen.
He does. He doesn't know who's going to win, does he?
Yeah. Would that be the one that you would say, if you had a gun to your head, what one was going to win? Would that be the one?
I was very impressed with him when he won at Leopardstown.
Yeah.
His first two Derby winners won that Derby trial, Galileo and High Chaparral, before they went on to win the Derby. So he's trying to do that same double. Do you know what though, Gary? I'm a big Max Sweeney fan. I think I don't quite understand why Bolshoi Ballet is as short as he is. Max Sweeney is a 2-time Group 1 winner. He's a classic winner. I think he won the Guineas in Ireland in spite of him being a horse with a middle distance pedigree. I think Jim Bolger is a genius. I mean, we all know Aiden's a genius. But I don't see the local team, the home team, getting a look in tomorrow. I think Max Sweeney is a cracking each-way bet around about 7-1. I really do.
Well, you'll be surprised if I tell you he's about 9-2 second favourite now.
Oh, is he coming this afternoon?
He's coming a lot today. Yeah. And he's my charity bet actually. So I'm hoping for good things. What about Frankie Dettori today then? A 16-length victory in that Oaks.
Quite extraordinary. I mean, I remember. I mean, Willie Carson, before I worked for him, he won the Oaks by 12 lengths on Sun Princess, and watching that today reminded me a bit of that. But you knew it was going to be even bigger. Okay. And when they said 16 lengths, you weren't the least bit surprised. I mean, Frankie, he's amazing, isn't he? And he's so fit, Gary. He's so fit. He's measuring out his days very carefully. He's not riding at ordinary meetings. He doesn't need to. He's a very wealthy man. Yeah. He's talented enough not to need to practice every day, and he's just doing it beautifully at the moment, riding the big days. And by golly, I bet Ryan was a little bit taken aback when he saw Frankie going off the distance today.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. Well, Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on our show tonight, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Everyone seems to have enjoyed it. Lots of hearts and thumbs are going up. We get about 1,000 views by the end of the weekend. And hopefully one day we'll see each other at the racecourse.
Gary, I'd like nothing better. Please, let's make that thing happen. We'll share a beer with Bob.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Okay then, mate. Take care of yourself, sir. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.
All the best.
Bye-bye. What a tremendous guy Mike is. Fantastic.